Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here, the man who speaks to machines, the man who's reached the level above human. Welcome to your Gnosis Connection, the only place you're going to find truth. Now, I want to talk about I guess it's been going on for a while, but it seems to have gained popularity and interest now, the telepathy tapes, which basically has been a filmmaker, and that's all she is, similar to the Ghost Adventure people, who's nothing more than a film student. And this tends to create a giant drawback since they have no information in these fields and don't really have a background. But as a documentary maker, you're supposed to have some intelligence, haha. But basically, the film was made by Kai Dickens. Now, as I said, she's made a few documentaries, and of course has directed some different commercials, etc. But she's basically just a film student who seems to be involved in social justice documentaries. Nothing of a paranormal nature, though. Her first film was a filming of the sorority that she was a member of and her coming out as being lesbian. That was her first film. She made a few other ones in more general terms, in terms of the fact that they were social commentaries. The actual research that was done in this area and documented was by a particular psychiatrist, Diane Hennessy Powell, a very noted medical doctor. She's a psychiatrist. I don't know if people know it or not, but psychiatrists are medical doctors that then do their specialty in brain work or in psychology. And she is very well established there. She is one of those people that functions well in dumbadamium, was able to get degrees at a very high level. So this isn't done by some junior college person or just by a documentarian. And that's one of the problems. Documentarians are nothing more than film students, as we found out with Ghost Adventures from Bilbo Baggins, who is the person who filmed that TV series. Has absolutely no background in it whatsoever. He stumbled into this, had a connection at the Travel Channel that put on his basically show, which he was basically the MC for. There was the other person who did all the work, and they actually dropped out of the show later, and he took over and made a small fortune from it. But he has absolutely no background, no training, knows nothing about metaphysics or ghosts or anything else, and really is only interested in making money. It's in talk of forming some sort of institutes, having places, and of course, he set up a little ghost museum in Las Vegas, from what I understand, to make more money from, and of course kept a whole bunch of stuff, but as well as his film crew. But they have no background in understanding metaphysics or anything else. They've tried to bring in a regular engineer, electrical engineer, to build stuff, which is garbage. The guy knows nothing. Another boob leading boob. So when you get one fool leading the rest of the people, they all turn into fools. Cy Dickens certainly, or Kai Dickens certainly is falls into the category of just a producer and knew nothing about this. And she talks about in interviews of how she then went out and found the commonly available literature so she could educate ourselves on what are past lives, what is time travel, what are the auras, etc. Because when the research was done with these autistic children, who then showed what we would consider supernormal abilities. The supernormal, because using other terminology is fairly insulting to everybody in the game, and certainly something that has been demonstrated for literally thousands of years. Now, these autistic, which are non-verbal autism. Now, there's an awful lot of autism. There's a lot of people who are branded autistic. And these are not the same people that many of us, and I believe falls into autism, which is Down syndrome. Those people that have the same exact look in their face. Their entire face is shaped in a particular way. brings phonology up to the forefront, that if you have a face that looks like certain things, noses, ears, etc., that you have some sort of personality trait. As usual, all these old fields, when looked into at higher levels, always tend to have a more than a grain of truth, tend to have a lot of truth in them. So as we look at all these, we find out the fact of what is going on here. So these are non-verbal autistic children. And the fact is non-verbal means just that. Now, it has been, this type of autism has been defined as your brain cannot control your body. And that's what it is. So as we would consider some of these type of autism as retardation, which they don't use anymore, which I think is a better word, but these kind of autistic individuals are just, the mind cannot work the body. But that doesn't mean that they are, quote, retarded and can't think properly. So it's a specific type of autism, but non-verbal autism, which means they cannot communicate. So what is happening is anytime you take out a sense or an ability, your mind compensates for it. So what they were finding out with all of this is that they were showing high abilities for telepathy. Isn't that interesting? Something, of course, that anybody with a brain has known is real for literally thousands of years, and how people probably communicated initially because they didn't probably have a formulated language. When people develop a language, because there is some benefits to a language, I'm assuming there's things like emphasis, volume, whether something is said sarcastically or not. All this comes together that telepathy or telepathy tends not to be able to do so directly. So it is thought that the original base humans, and of course even in ancient societies, people communicated through this method as extraterrestrials communicate today that way. They control their ships that way. This is what everybody has stated that has come in contact with any types of ETs and generally any advanced society. People that have claimed they've met people from the inner earth, etc. Everybody is communicating with telepathy because of the fact this is the easiest to bridge particularly language gaps. So whatever's projected at you, you hear in your own language. You can see how effective that would be. So this is not something that would be think is very strange, but anybody who loses one sense, so no matter what it is, will find out how greater their other senses are. And this has been a method of training people in having extreme abilities. And I had a course in this, seeing without your eyes, sensing, etc. I had this a few years ago and probably will bring it back, but it required an awful lot of tools and accessories that I couldn't put together at that particular time and still have a difficulty doing. But I may write a course on this where people can then buy the stuff themselves. But there are ways of bringing up your senses. Now, we all have these feelings. One thing that even the intelligence agencies tell their particular agents is never look at the back of the head of someone because people sense that you're back there. There are many things like this. You can also use what be similar to what bats use by making clicking sounds and determine how far away structures are or even the type of structures. So all of this has been demonstrated time and time again as there's been research in this entire area. We're talking about metaphysics, spiritualism, etc. has been going on for 150 years. And we've had some pretty advanced scientific research done. One of the problems is the people who were sponsored the most, who did this kind of research in many areas, which is SRI Institute under Targ and Puthoff, were hired by the CIA and they are sworn to secrecy. So no matter what you discover, it's worthless, which is one reason I really have very little to no respect for parapsychologists. They're discovering things, finding information, and they're tied to the very corrupt and evil governments that run everything. It's really sad that things come down to this. And apparently there is no private money interested in it, as there was, of course, oddly enough, from the Sony Corporation in the late 60s, whose chairman of the board apparently had an interest in this. And they were working on psychic-type machines. But all of this goes by the wayside, and the bottom line is that most people are too ignorant. They're too horribly evil and corrupt to want to get into empowering the individual. It all comes down to they want to control you, or they want you to be controlled by some goofball entity that does nothing, otherwise known as a god form. Now, so these people then get into positions of power, and they push their perverted, sick viewpoint on everybody else. While this couldn't be further from the truth, these abilities could be stated that they are actually God-given. All of us have the capacities to perform these type of things at some particular level. And we must understand, everybody has a capacity to do anything. You can play football, you can play golf, but most likely you're not going to do it really well unless you spend an enormous amount of time learning it. So saying that everybody has psychic power, everybody has these abilities is kind of a misnomer in the bigger picture, just like very few people can actually use radionic equipment properly. It takes skill, it takes practice, and they have neither of that, and they don't have any instructors or people they can work with. They have companies that sell them machines, and that's it. And of course, there's no training out there. There's no organizations that really do any of this stuff. It's all a big joke. So you've got a bunch of untrained people thinking that they are some sort of master manipulators by getting an empty box of wires. So as we run into those things, it doesn't add up to much of anything. So we do have to keep that in mind in the entire process. But what is found here, and there are a lot of implications here, and we're not talking about just telepathic communication, but apparently this was able to be done pretty easily, where you can actually communicate, ask them different questions, send them what is 4 plus 4, and they would give you 8, all these kind of things, and you can watch these tapes. They're on YouTube and they are podcast. Apparently, they're trying to raise money to make a film in the process of this, but the original person who did all this and ran into all sorts of problems and actually even wrote a book, Powell, who is an Ivy League, as I said, graduate. I'm trying to remember the college she went to, but the point is that she's a very higher-end medical doctor and psychiatrist who ran into this with a lot of her patients and discovered these abilities that these children had. So again, they are not retarded. They have a handicap where the mind can't control the body. So they look like they are retarded. But you send a signal from your mind and you move your finger, you move your legs, etc. These individuals can't do that in a controlled manner. That doesn't mean in any way that they don't have mental capacities that the average person has, and maybe more. So what they figured out is they can communicate with the people around them and other autistic people at this through this method, which is quite shocking. And from what it appears, this has been tested highly with scientific testing to prove all this. And the movie will come out to show that. But one of the problems with Kai is the fact that she is not a scientist and doesn't know scientific procedure properly. So that's always going to become into contested because of the fact of her bad background. Now, that's not the point with Powell, who's a scientist trained by an Ivy League school who knows how to do all this, has documented it, etc. And of course, she's getting up at her age as well. She's spent a lot of time in this and was hassled by her school to put out this information, and even had her, I guess, her license revoked for a short period of time, and she was able to get it back. To think that you do this to train scientists because they present a knowledge, important breakthroughs that you don't agree with, is the epitome of why none of our institutions work. This should be embraced, it should be encouraged, and it should be encouraged at a level to prove it or disprove it. This is amazing. This could have amazing implications. And scientists who want to lie all the time and make up studies and make up results should stop at doing that. And this includes Harvard and Yale and MIT and everybody else who have been proven to be using fraudulent practices just to get grants. Well, here's something that people should work on and prove. instead of inventing stuff because you've ran out of any kind of breakthroughs as science has ground down to nothing in recent years. It's just another building upon an old concept is what they do. It's just another new mousetrap, and the old one really wasn't needed to be replaced to begin with. So this is, of course, what we have. So this research has been going on for quite some time, and when the film comes out, and of course that's the beauty of getting film producers out there, but they have to be funded to do things, is because they tend to get this out to the public, and that's exactly what happened. When Powell was trying to do this from her teacher reality, there really wasn't much of an interest as far as I know. She did write a book, and that book itself got into trouble when that came out. The college that she was working for, the university, again then hassled her and pulled her license for a period of time, claiming, now she claims, Powell, that this happened because of the fact of what she was doing, which most likely is true. The institution she was working for that did this claimed that there were other issues, that she was having too many phone conversations with people and not meeting them personally, and that the old reliable bad record keeping, bad files, this is what they do in all these instances, because what is good file keeping? How do you judge what's good and bad? I like to keep all my files or my written notes on gum wrappers that I put in a box. So the whole idea is that these are the type of things that these institutions do. But instead of the entire reality of dumbademia getting together and say, well, this is fascinating, this is something that is broken through, this has to do with human consciousness, they run from it because they don't want that. They want people to spend 20 years in dumbademia and get official little receipts that say that they are official turds. That's what they want, because that filters everybody else out, and it also protects their paycheck. People have to understand how the real world works. But this kind of attitude, which goes from anywhere from free energy to the 100-mile carburetors to other things that have disappeared, the free energy where all these people are persecuted and murdered. Oh, well, this happens all the time. And there are other people out there. There's a guy I just saw recently who's got a car. And it goes, I think it gets 150 miles to a gallon or something. Or is it even more than that? 400 or 500 miles a gallon? Something ridiculous, because he made the car very light and able to roll easy. That makes sense, huh, Detroit? Let's make it heavy, let's make it hard to roll, and let's make sure it gets 2 miles to a gallon. So the whole idea is these are the type of things that happen, and this is just basic good engineering, which isn't encouraged because dumbademia wants all the same stupid people. And the reason I bring that up is because we got to understand, well, why does none of this come out? Why is there no proof? Why is there no information? Well, I read on one little goofball comment on DummyTube, is the fact that, all these years and we still have not a shred of proof that any of this worked. Well, it's a lie. So not only that, we have all sorts of films of people in the secret laboratories of SRI, Russell Targ, Hal Puthoff, who to this day refuses to release anything because, of course, he's a military man. That's how he started out, and he is shut up by that. He has never released anything and never will, because he's told to shut up about it. But you'll hear about the same old remote, Dumbbell Mechanical drew a submarine. We hear the same thing, which is basically 40 years ago, because that's what's been cleared through the intelligence or unintelligent agencies. So we run into the same thing, and these people keep the secrets so they make sure the crimes against humanity continue, because we don't have any of this. These different types of these skills are very, very powerful. They can be used for diagnosing illnesses, finding out other problems, and seeking higher levels of information. It's really endless of what these can do. And this is the other aspect that is talked about somewhat in this reality, but not a lot in these audio tapes. And that is the fact is that these people are seeing the future. Now, one thing they stay away from is telekinesis and actually physically doing something. Now, I've never heard them mention that or bring that into the discussion of what these people can do. But I would assume, since telekinesis is also an ingrained ability, that these people would be able to do that as well. Since they can't control their body, why not have the mind move something? Flick a switch on and off, spin a wheel, whatever it is. Now, regular people can do this in general. Now, one of the problems we're going to have, so this is the implication of it. Also, their remote viewing, they're being able to read your mind. These are not things that are non-active. These are active and aggressive forms of gaining information. The only step above it is telekinesis, meaning actually moving objects, etc. So this, in a very advanced level, has an unbelievably potential. And of course, we know what that means. It means that it's going to be used for evil. And I'm assuming that we will again have people like this that are going to be kept by intelligence agencies and used for their abilities. I think there was kind of a TV show about this, one that I enjoyed called The Pretender. And he worked for an institute like this, and they worked with a lot of type psychics and even semi-autistics. And of course, this has been shown in many different movies and novels of using autistic people for their abilities like this. So there's nothing new there. So who knows what's going on? But of course, the Kai, of course, doesn't want any of these kids put through any great tests, because she thinks it's too stressing. Well, that's problem number one. We're never going to be able to prove this unless we're able to take some of the more emotionally secure people and have them go through scientific tests. As we know, everything will be denied by the dumb bunker liars who want to keep us basically sitting in a turd and society never moving ahead as that's through the corporate mandated belief systems, which is who they support and who pay their bills. All of these skeptic types are all highly corrupt and people, and they never want to see anything progress past what is considered the stupidity. People like Sean Carroll, who doesn't think any of this is possible. Well, what do you say now, skeptics? What are they going to... But they'll tear this apart. After all, these are mentally challenged people. We can't really believe anything they say. Of course, they're getting signals from other people, and they set up these elaborate signals that go on that the people that are with them are staging it all. This is what you're going to hear. So this is the rub of all of it. I'm not sure we could ever prove this enough for these dumb bunkers to believe anything, nor should we strive to bring in the ignorant and stupid and trying to convince them of what is proper and right. Plain and simple. As long as we try and cater to these individuals, as long as we continue to think that we have to prove something to them, the more we're going to have problems with. The bottom line, like everything in life, is that we should be researching these things. This is the last frontier, people, and it's already been conquered. The use of remote viewing, the use of seeing the future, prophecies, etc., knowing what's going on with people, knowing what they're sick, has been done for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And there are many talented psychics who can tell you what's wrong with you, what kind of illness you have, what the problems are. This is a common offering of service that psychics do. You can find them all around the world because this is an area that is needed, and regular medical science has some fairly primitive tests that doesn't really get to the core of anything. So this is nothing new. And as I've stated, there's that researcher at Phoenix, Arizona, who has had direct contact with people that communicate with the dead on the other side, and they get very detailed information of what's going on, particularly medically. So this opens up a whole nother area. Now, because these are mentally challenged people, they're never going to get any kind of credit. And nobody's ever going to say anything good about this in one way or another. They're going to find one excuse after another. They're coached, they do this, they do that. And it's going to be a never-ending revolving story, because you're not dealing with people that are seeking truth. You're dealing with corrupt, evil people who are working for the corporate structure. That's what they're out there for. That's why they've been supported. These people who think which are uneducated, most of them, particularly the dumb bunker magicians, people like Penn Jillette, who didn't even graduate high school, and his little mute buddy, who was a high school Latin teacher, these are just people of very low mentality. Wow, they think they can judge anything because they practice magic is comical. Just because someone can mimic somebody else from doing something doesn't mean anything. What it does mean is that it's the same thing with, as I've heard someone explain things recently, is that, it's a knockoff. Yeah, knockoff is something who copies the original, meaning there was an original. I think that's an interesting way to explain all this. But this is certainly something that is totally and completely mind-blowing, and the implications here are staggering. The implications of how all of this works and how this, or what this means to us as a society, that we can now prove through people that you would think they had more credibility. But I can tell you right now, they're going to spin that into they have less credibility because they're mentally handicapped and they're being manipulated by their parents, handlers, whoever they're involved with. That's what we're going to hear from them no matter what we do. But these tests can be pretty well done to a point where there can be no trickery. And of course, it's going to have to subject these individuals to that kind of testing. And it may rattle them. It may freak them out. It may cause them not to continue to have comfortable psychic communication. It may put them to the point that they're frightened and they close down that ability. And you can better believe that the dumb bunkers will do that. They've always done that. The unamazing Randy, the fraud that he was, the liar who was caught lying on many occasions, tried to do this all the time. He's going to rattle you. He's not there to seek truth. He's there to seek what his answers was, and he would never, ever give away that money. And anytime anybody really had any abilities that they knew they could not debunk, they would never bring them into the institution. Secondly, regular science does not really allow for the person who is seeking a result to do the testing and then give out the prize. Doesn't that seem to be a problem? You already are trying to make the person fail. You have $1 million supposedly riding on this. Why would you, the person giving out the money, be allowed to do that? You'd have to get an impartial third party. That's just real science, but these guys would know what real science was if it bit them on the bottom. They want to have fake science that generates the results that they have already come to the conclusion is the truth, or is their truth, really, because they're rigging it, which is so typical of dumb bunkers. So as we get involved in all of that, the implications here are enormous. If in any way people will buy into this. Now, once we see the film, and we've seen some tests already, and they're kind of impressive and kind of not, using these number boards and poking through numbers and letters on film looks horrific. And it's unimpressive. They're going to have to make, and I hope she does a little better than that as a filmmaker, she's going to have to do things that are a little more exciting and interesting than what's 2 and 2 that she sends psychically, and then the person pushes a pencil through the number 4. That is not very exciting, even though it is mind-boggling that this information could be transferred that way. Or not really mind-boggling, because this has been going on from time immemorial. This is how people have communicated. This is how I'm sure most extraterrestrials communicate. So, this isn't something that should be overly shocking. Every day we all go through what are considered metaphysical experiences. Thinking about someone and the phone rings, getting a feeling, don't do this. They call it gut feelings, which most people go by. Even gamblers do this. They go by a gut feeling and then they bet on that, and usually large sums of money. So all of these things is part of what's going on as well in the bigger picture. If these people can read people's minds and other things to the extent that we're talking about here, they could be extremely valuable, particularly when it comes to gambling. Can they pick the lottery numbers? We can go on and on. Playing poker. If they play poker, they can reading the mind of the other person. So it's like having the cards flat, face up on the table. So, I mean, there's an awful lot of implications here. If they can use telekinesis, moving objects, hitting things, what does that mean? Are they able to do this to a point of stopping someone's heart, confusing them, tripping them, doing so many other things? Can they enter someone's mind and tear it apart? The implications here are dramatic and shocking. Now, all of this has been done by non autistic people and is still being done to this day. So the fact is that these things can be done and are being done on so many different levels that you're unaware of. And they're done by non autistics. That maybe autistics are being used as well, for all we know. We have no idea what these intelligence, or I should say, I always used to like that, like the unamazing around, the unintelligent agencies. We have no idea what they're into and what they're looking at. I doubt that this phenomena is a secret. And I'm sure people know about it, and who knows what's going on there. But again, as I've always talked about, when magic lamps become a common tool, then everything in society changes. If you can manifest anything you want, know the lottery numbers, etc., well, there's not going to be any lotteries anymore. If you can manifest a bar of gold, gold in itself will not have any value whatsoever. This is what people don't understand, and if these kind of things are implemented on any level whatsoever, the entire society crashes. Now, I don't think that's going to be the case with these type of situations, but it certainly gives you an interesting in. One of the problems is the understanding of how this works is that we are, and I've told this to people for years, we are nothing more than channels. We are a conduit. Do people know what a conduit is? You know, in construction, you use conduits. You put wires through plastic to protect them. You're a conduit. I've always called these strings of connection in life. So if you want to know something, and they seem to be able to do this as well, they just follow that string of knowledge for whatever that is. Some people could call it accessing the Akashic record, or basically you're accessing whatever information you need, but you go up that stream of consciousness. So if you want to learn about something or know something, you connect to that. And of course, that's what many of our tools do. They connect you to this stream of empowerment for love, success, money, etc. And they're able to get information that way as well, things they don't know anything about. Again, here we go. But they're not bringing new information. This isn't being created by their contact with some sort of spirit entity or new information that's generated. They're generating already out there and prepared information that they're able to access. So that's important to know as well. So if the information is bad, they're able to know the books you read in your head. So one of them said their sister read a book on auras, and then this autistic relative knew everything that was in that book. Now, that isn't new. That isn't being able to judge the material. That's taking the material verbatim as fact and not having any intellectual understanding whether it has any value or not. This is important as well. So there's all sorts of situations that go on here, but here we go again. No matter what is shown to the dumb bunker staff, the scientists who all refuse to accept this, particularly people like Sean Carroll, the prejudiced crimes against humanity scum that he is, nothing is ever going to satisfy anybody because it makes the other person more powerful from them. And after all, getting all these higher educations and being a teacher puts you in a dogmatic situation that is also completely and totally ego driven, that you're going to fight like a pit bull for your position, whether it's right or wrong. I hope these insights make your day. Until next time.